What keeps people stuck down here, in your opinion? I've already had my rant about hubris and lack of knowledge and Dunning-Kruger effect. What are the key things that you see that keeps people stuck down in this average and stagnant? Well, let's face it, if you're not increasing, you're decreasing as far as I'm concerned. You're in decline. What keeps people stuck there?
I would say the primary thing is ignorance, not knowing any better. And that being a cultural thing, that we just do it like that, and that struggle is okay, that chaos is fine, that, survival of the fittest is the way we do things around here.
Welcome to Rebranding Construction, the show where we pull back the curtain on what it really takes to lead high-performance teams on complex projects. Today's guest is Tom Hughes, author of Improvement Starts with I and Great Processes. Tom's helped transform the culture and deliver some of the most demanding projects across Ireland and beyond. Today we're going to unpack how the best project teams scale, grow and win while the rest are stuck firefighting. So let's get into it.
All the way from sunny Ireland, we have Tom Hughes, and we have actually got some sun over there, I believe, today, mate.
We do indeed. A rare one.
All right, we're going to crack straight into this, Tom. What I want to do is set the scene for people, because process is something that gets spoken to a lot. And there's a Elizabeth King quote, which is, process saves us from the poverty of our intentions. And I believe that's right, but I believe there's a lot of depth to process that we don't really understand. There's good, there's bad, and the ugly. So give us a little bit of background, mate. Like, where you first started in process, one of your biggest successes, where it is at the moment. Talk to probably the Gemba Summit, something like that.
Oh. Yeah, well, that's where we're heading towards the peak there. But yeah, we'll roll back to the start. I'm a farm boy from Northern Ireland, and I went to University of England, and I started in the automotive industry in the Midlands, which, when it comes to standard processes and standard work, most people would say that that's really the origin, well, one of the recent origins of where standard processes come from. And my first job, I was actually still in my final year of college, was to put in ISO 9000, BS 5750 as it was back then. That's how long ago that is. So that was a quality system. Yep. And I was the student that they gave to the job of documenting the processes and procedures too. So, it was great fun. I was there, had the standard, and it was really academic. And I'd be writing the procedures thinking I'm doing great stuff, showing procedures to my quality manager boss, like, aren't I great? Then I'd take them out onto the shop floor and they'd basically tell me to FRO. So that was my first lesson in process, because I didn't engage with the people. And I learned that before I'd even finished college. So the way you need to do it, if you want people to engage, you have to engage with the people that are actually adding the value for them to have any ownership of that process. Otherwise, you're just telling people what to do. And nobody likes being told what to do they? So that was really a fundamental thing I learned very, very early on. And then the next 10 years in automotive, I was basically putting systems and processes in as a large part of my job for that 10 years, hands-on, from, making a thing and the assembly process to do something, right up to how would we introduce new projects, what's our project management gateway system, and I'd be developing that kind of system and process. So that was really the ground in that first 10 years of trying to understand, what is a process? How do you make it effective? How do you stop it being damn wallpaper? Because in my experience, the vast majority of documented processes in business outside automotive are wallpaper. Now let that sink in. So anyway, we can skip forward into career, 10 years private equity, growing a thing, 200 million, sold the bloody thing, was a millionaire for a while. Then I got divorced, not a millionaire. And then back into industry and really rocking. Now Gemba is a software company I started just over 3 years ago. And we create software to help people do standard processes, Kanban cards, manage their competence. And we've got, by the end of this year, we'll have 1,000 customers worldwide, 40 odd countries. And it's been a massive success. And it's building on that process knowledge that I have, where I'm working with customers every day to implement process. So it's brilliant. I'm just living the dream. So that's great.
Sounds awesome. Mate, just on that, give us a couple of links because people are going to want to get a hold of Gemba Docs, so you need to get across there and get a trial of that at the very least.
Sure.
And the best place
Thanks.
to connect with you as well, because you do some killer content. Can you please give us, where's the best two places for people to go for that?
LinkedIn, both my personal profile and Gemba Docs, and then the Gemba Docs YouTube channel. There are really active channels. We're posting a few times a week, minimum.
Perfect.
And a lot of our content isn't just... The great thing about the content we post in those channels is a lot of it's customer generated. So, we're really blessed that we have a very, very engaged group of customers. We're always getting content of them applying the software and applying things from great processes in real life. So it's useful content.
Yeah, it is. It is 100%. It's not sales pitch content. You're not going to go there to watch Tom trying to sell you the software. No. They should buy the software.
No.
It's really useful stuff, and it's stuff that you can take away and implement immediately. So I recommend everyone gets across and does that. First question.
Absolutely. Here, Adam. Sorry, before we dive in, I'm gonna interrupt you there because it's really, really it's relevant to this discussion. So you said there, right? We're not going to see Tom making a sales pitch, and you won't. And part of getting processes to be really embedded in your organization is that the values that you are espousing to your people need to be embedded into your process. So last year we took on a sales guy who's no longer with us in Gemba Docs, but part of our values in the company is that we don't sell software. We help customers get to value, and then they might buy the software if it's appropriate for them. And that is built into our processes. So anything to do with customer engagement, no, you're not selling stuff. You're there to get your customer to value. And yeah, we'll see what happens after that. But it impacts the process. That's why I interrupted you. It's
awesome.
It's just a nice real life opportunity. So anyway, off you go, mate. Pile into those questions.
Process gets thrown around a lot. A lot of people talk to it. Two of the things that I believe keep people in this bottom corner here, we'll speak to this as we go. There's people that do this average, and then there's the outliers that do it really, really well. The outliers are growing and scaling, and the average ones are stagnant or in decline. Two things I believe holds them in that stagnant and decline is hubris and the illusion of knowledge of what process actually is, okay? More commonly known as the Dunning-Kruger effect. I'm being pretty brutal here, but a lot of people need to hear this. What is your definition of process, please, mate, of not a good one, a great process?
Well, we'll start off at a very wide definition of process, and it's one that originally comes from Paul Akers' 2-second lean. The origin of it comes from everything in life is a process. I've extended that to say everything in life is a process or the outcome of a process. So I'm talking to you on a webcam. The webcam is the outcome of a process. We are having this podcast interview. That's the outcome of a process of getting the podcast interview set up. So hopefully you see what I mean. And that is literally a truism. Everything in life is a process or the outcome of a process. So when we start to get into what's a good process and what's a not good process, for me, a good process, if we're coming at it from an organizational perspective, is a process that's easy. At the very ultimate, what's a good process? It's easy, it's simple to execute. And a not good process is complex and very difficult to execute and very difficult to transfer the knowledge about the execution of that process. So hopefully you get that. Simple, it has to be simple, easy, and clear. That's a good one. And a hard one is difficult, complex, and unclear and difficult to knowledge transfer. That's the basic continuum.
So you speak to, in the book, Great Processes, and you can see the book just behind Tom there. You can go head across to his site and grab a copy of that. It's a quick, easy read, and everyone should be doing that
to
grab hold of that. you speak to three different levels. So you speak to, I'll walk across and do it in a minute. One's light bulb, the other one's banana process. And you're talking to a Queenslander tonight, mate. We're actually called banana benders, believe it or not. Apparently that's our job, putting the bends in the bananas. And a traffic light process.
Yeah.
I'll walk across here and explain what the light bulb process. I'll go across here and I'll just make the camera follow me. It'll be a lot better. That right there, I'll turn that off and turn that on.
Yeah.
That's a process, yeah?
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's a process. That is at a very simple level, that's a process. And the why we call it light bulb process is easy for everybody to understand. It doesn't matter. Anybody can do that. You don't need a documented process to work out how to make that outcome happen, which is the light bulb switching on. And so with that, it's low complexity, and it's not safety critical. Nobody's going to die only if the light bulb's not working. I've lost one. Low complexity, and the outcome isn't variable.
The outcome, yeah.
You can't unless you got a dimmer switch. The outcome is always going to be the same if the switch gets hit. Yeah, so that's a light bulb process. So there's no value in documenting that process. It's just a thing that happens, and we know how to do it. Everybody knows how to do that thing, and there's nothing critical about the outcome.
So if we get paranoid and go and dig in a heap of detail of doing a light bulb, we're wasting our time, yeah?
Yeah, and that's the purpose of defining it, is that sometimes people will pick something that's just so inane, and the outcome isn't variable, and they're documenting everything just and it just doesn't serve any purpose. And it basically denigrates the process of when you're trying to document and standardize your process.
Yeah, okay, cool. Oh, next one. The Queensland process, banana bender process. Everyone peels the bananas the wrong way.
Yeah.
Can you explain that one, mate?
Well, that's one where the outcome again is it's relatively not variable. So that at the end of the day, your banana's going to get peeled one way or another. But the method of doing it can vary dramatically, from really difficult if you do it one way, or really challenging if you do it, really easy if you do it another way. And I discovered through a Mexican friend of mine that in Mexico they typically open them at the blunt end, and that when you do that, it's an awful lot easier to peel the banana than it is when you open it from, traditionally we're opening it at the stalk end, and if it's ripe, it goes all over the shop and everything, and it can get really messy. So that's the reason I use that analogy is because most processes in life, especially in our business lives, look like that. So that's when our outcome is relatively stable, but there's all kinds of ways to get there, from really efficient and effective to really not. And so when we have a process like that, it very much benefits from having a documented standard. And that documented standard, again, is a super important point, is that it's a guide. It's a knowledge transfer tool, so that from one person who knows how to do the task to someone else who doesn't, and it's a really good foundation for training people and makes that whole training process so much more efficient. But the one thing that a banana process isn't, it's not a set of handcuffs. So it's one of the things that turns people off from standard processes, is when this sort of, I want everybody will do the standard process, and if you don't, you will be shot. And then they wonder why people don't engage. So the vast majority of processes are actually bananas, and we'll get on to the one that looks, let's say, more strict than that. That's the traffic light. But the banana process is really the vast majority of processes that exist in our business lives.
So would a majority of the time for a banana process, a checklist be sufficient?
What do you mean? What kind of checklist? Give me a bit deeper than that.
Just some steps, but not like a detailed process that we're going to go into next for a a traffic light process. But would a simple checklist that you had to tick off 6 things to complete that task?
As long as it can be clear, as long as it's clear and it's Now we'll get into another subject about training shortly, because these processes, when we treat them like bananas, training is often necessary for those. You're not just, there's a myth about, people walking in off the street and able to do everybody's job and all of that. I don't fully buy into that. Is that often there's a training element for someone to know how to do that thing properly. So when it comes to, is that document sufficient? It depends on the context. If there's not going to be any training required, it needs to be clear enough that someone can literally walk off the street and do it. And if that's the expectation, that's what needs to happen. If we're expecting someone, if it's a complex task and it still has, a variety of outcomes, training may well be required, and the document then doesn't have to be in quite the same depth for that to happen. If you understand what I'm getting at, where if the document is there and it is the Bible and there's nobody to help, then it needs to be detailed enough for a newbie to understand it. Whereas if you're expecting training to accompany the document, then it need not necessarily be so detailed.
Cool. Thank you. Right, let's go to the top of the level, the traffic light process. When do we use that? And what does it look like?
So most important thing in defining a traffic light process is where the outcome of the process is variable and critical. So the easiest way for me to describe that is something that's, say for example, quoting a job in your game. If you're quoting a job, you don't get to change it easily afterwards. If you're quoting like a multi-million project, you're not going to leave it to chance, or unless you're a crazy person, what that process is. And well, there people are crazy. There are crazy people out there.
You would be surprised how loose it is. Yeah.
Yeah. But to me, that is an example from your sector I'd look at, that if there's a multi-million project getting quoted, that's a traffic light process. There are certain steps that are mandatory, fireable if you're not following them. So that process needs to be defined. And then you need to train people to follow it. And it needs to be understood that, that is a process that is mandatory to be followed step by step as it is defined. So, but even in your game, at a very simplistic level, just that when we do a quote, everything is authorized by somebody before it gets released. That is a process. And if it's not authorized before it gets released, well, then that's, obviously the process wasn't complied with. But obviously, I think, because I know people in your sector, and that example I've been taken through it in some detail. And when you look at that as an example of a process, both in terms of defining it and the opportunities to improve it are huge. I know businesses that have taken multi-million projects from weeks to hours when they're looking at and that's the other huge benefit when you document a process. So this is a really important point I want to dwell on, is that often just documenting the process is a huge improvement activity, especially when you have more than one person who's familiar with that process doing the documenting, because you get what I call a best of process. It's like, oh, wow, I didn't realize you did it like that. Oof, that's awesome. I can do that. And you get a sharing and a coming together of ideas. And just that first documented process can be a huge improvement for everybody. And so the fact that you document a process, there's an old saying in Lean that without standards, there can be no improvement. And that's definitely a truism. So if you've got an ill-defined process, especially if it's complex, and you try to improve it, often all you're doing is creating another variation that you have to try to manage because the process is poorly implemented. So yeah, let's get that really clear. Like when we document a process and we use, I call it a rule of two. For everything that's a banana and a traffic light, anything that's critical, you will benefit from two people doing it, from doing the documenting, because you'll get a bouncing of ideas. Even if you've got two people, one of which knows nothing about the process, he's just a facilitator, and the other one is the process expert, the exchange of ideas whenever they're going, well, why do you do it like that? And that's not clear to me. And you end up with a much better defined process, and a process is partially challenged. So, yeah, documenting in its own right is an improvement exercise. Mm-hmm.
Great point, mate. Very, very important. And you'd be surprised how loose we are. As I say, we're using a light bulb process a lot of the time when we should have traffic light system, particularly around quoting, and some of the stuff that happens on multi-million and billion-dollar projects would blow your mind.
Mm-hmm.
What keeps people stuck down here, in your opinion? I've already had my rant about hubris and lack of knowledge and Dunning-Kruger effect. What are the key things that you see that keeps people stuck down in this average and stagnant? Well, let's face it, if you're not increasing, you're decreasing as far as I'm concerned. You're in decline. What keeps people stuck there?
I would say the primary thing is ignorance, not knowing any better. And that being a cultural thing, that we just do it like that, and that struggle is okay, that chaos is fine, that, survival of the fittest is the way we do things around here. That to me is what I've seen in my business career. That's the biggest problem.
Struggle, and just capturing this while we're going, chaos. Yeah, make it up and make it real. You hear that one on construction sites all the time, and it's nonsense. When you got 500 people out in the paddock, you don't want to be making it up and making it real.
Yeah,
and I think we've got a good
tolerance. It's the tolerance for tolerance for day-to-day chaos, crap processes. And often that comes from just, we don't know of a better way of doing it. So ignorance for me is the one word that would sum it up.
Sum it up. Okay, cool. All right. Outliers. Some of the outliers you've seen. Can you give us an example of someone who does this really, 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 really well? And then we'll speak to the GR.E.A.T process.
Well, we have countless outliers now because I'm helping our customers do this every day. And the thing that I would say, it also contributes again to your bottom quadrant there. It's the bottom quadrant will manage by outcome alone. And so all it is just beating people up and making sure that the outcome happens, and they think that that's the way that you get results. So that results orientated and results myopically focused on only results, and we'll just beat the crap out of people to get there. The other side of people are process focused. So that's what happens in the top right hand corner. So these are people that outcomes are clearly still a thing, but they're much more focused on the process and their people, which are basically going to make the results happen. So those kind of leaders and those kind of teams understand that they run towards problems and they support their people. It's basically an upside down organogram. So the leaders of that business see their job is to support and set up their people for success in their roles. Where in the bottom left-hand quadrant, it's I'm at the top here and the shit rolls downhill, frankly. So that's the huge cultural shift. It's a mindset shift. And that phrase, if anybody wants to leave this interview with one phrase, is that when you change your mindset from our people are just resources to be managed and motivated to get results into our people are resources, I hate even that word, that our job is there to support and develop and to set them up for success to get our results. Then everything shifts. That single mindset shift from leadership and management, whether you're the top person in the company or you're a functional departmental manager, you can change your mindset to be that way. And then that is a thing that needs to be reflected in how you behave day to day.
So we get into GR.E.A.T. G, what are we starting with? So GR.E.A.T's an acronym Tom's come up with, and this is a process to create process. Yeah, that's the best way to describe it.
The great thing here, we're going to keep contrasting the two quadrants as we go through this. So the GR.E.A.T, the G.R.E.A.T, the G stands for Gemba, and Gemba is the Japanese word for workplace. And again, teams that are in that top right-hand corner they're focused on the Gemba. They're connected to the Gemba, to the workplace. So right up from the top people to the people adding value, there is a flat structure and the people are highly connected. The phrase I want to leave you with on this one is that the further away the further away from the Gemba the decisions are made, the worse the decisions will be. And it's the same for your standard processes. If you're sitting at your desk writing standard processes and you're not engaging with your people, the processes are going to be crap and nobody's going to care. They're going to be wallpaper. So the Gemba and the leadership and the people creating and documenting standard processes need to be highly connected. And if we go down to the bottom left-hand corner again, what you'll find there is that the leadership and management are running the business by reports. They're running it from aggregated data. They're not connected to the Gemba. They've no effing idea what's going on at the Gemba. They actually don't really care that much what's going on at the Gemba because, at the end of the day, it's not my job. I'm just here to get results. And that's the problem down there. And then if those guys try to implement standard processes, they'll abdicate responsibility for it. They'll get some student in, like my very first company years ago, and the job will be, we've documented all our processes, but the management didn't engage with that at all. They've just delegated that role. The processes will end up being wallpaper, and then they'll say, those SOP things, they don't really work. Nothing to do with that. So that's your G's for Gemba. Get on the bloody Gemba. That's the message there, right?
Also known as the scene of the crime.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. And we've run away from a few of them in our time, I bet you.
Right, so we've got to get to the Gemba. We've got to get to where the people are doing the work, the people that are actually doing the stuff, not sit in our office 150 metres, 200,000 metres away. We've got to be at the work front to do these things.
Yeah.
What's next?
R, my friend, is recognized. So this is basically a test of your standard. If the people doing the job don't recognize them as that's the way you should do the job, then you're on a sticky wicket. So how you get recognized is to engage with the people doing the work. Preferably the people doing the work and adding the value are the ones that lead the creation of standard documented processes. And they're supported to do that by their leadership management with the right tools and the right time and resources to do it. That's how that's done, how you achieve recognized. And then conversely, back down to the bottom left again. Those guys, if they did in their wildest dreams have some documented processes, nobody would give a damn about them. They wouldn't be recognized. They'd be stuck in a folder somewhere, and they'd maybe be used to pass an audit if they had a customer coming in that was going to do some checks. Maybe they're for the health and safety guys. Look, we've got processes here, but nobody gives a damn. And then whenever there's an audit, they run around and panic and backfill out all the documentation that they're missing and everything else. Right? So that's what's going on in the bottom left-hand corner, okay?
Yep. Gathering dust and never used. Gathering dust and never used. Yep. All right.
Indeed.
Hey.
I always visualize a dirty yellow folder for that. it's in some cupboard in a mobile hut somewhere, and it doesn't see the light of day except on audit.
Exactly. I've seen stuff out in I won't name the sort of places that they are, but they have a document that thick, right? It's not much more than a light bulb process, really. What's got to get done. The document's that thick. It's stuck gathering dust in the corner somewhere. Like you say, it's normally in old steel file cabinets that are out there somewhere, stuck in the bottom drawer, like 100%. You said, in a yellow manila folder somewhere. Yeah. So we're ticking all the boxes so far. We're doing well in this corner.
Yeah. By the way, there's something about this as well. This whole thing should be fun. That's a word that people get turned off by. Why does work have to be a pain in the ass? And you can have a lot of fun. We have people addicted to Gemba docs, getting the processes done and improving the processes. This is how work should be. Anyway, next into E. We're into E now, Adam. So E is easy to use and easy to follow. So if you the processes, if we're using them for, like as we talked about earlier, if our purpose is that somebody can walk in off the street and do thing X easily, like if Dave's not there, if he's on holiday, or we want full redundancy, like say for example a process that's like not mega critical but still a banana. We have this thing in lean manufacturing world where we start the culture of processes in the toilet. It's going to freak out the construction guy because I've been in construction toilets. So, but a typical factory toilet, like back in my day, that was also an absolute like hellhole, black hole of Calcutta thing, right? So, a little story. When I first was in automotive and I was an auditor, I was like, don't know if they have them in Australia. You guys had the man from Del Monte back in the 80s. Like he was basically for canned peaches. Del Monte were the company, and they had this ad where this guy in a white suit and a lovely Panama hat would go out and visit the little people on their farm and say, yes, the man from Del Monte, he says, yes, they can supply the Del Monte people. Our peaches are good enough. Anyway, I was the man from Del Monte for visiting suppliers. And they could, these are big projects. Like nothing was worth less than a few million. And I was the guy that would okay that supplier to be one of our suppliers or not. And my boss taught me 2 places to look in the factory to assess when I first got there, the 2 places I needed to visit. The works bathroom, the works toilet, because if the works toilet's good, you can be pretty sure their fucking work's good. The actual product's going to be decent. The other place was the skip. So where they would throw the rubbish and the scrap. If it was tidy, again, you can rest assured these people are taking care of the product that they're shipping you, if they can bother doing that. It's a bit like the old Van Halen M&M's story, if you've ever heard that one.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So Van Halen used to say, there's brown M&M's, then, we'll have a huge bowl of M&M's, but no brown ones. And that was their way of checking that the processes, all the other things were complied with. Anyway, easy to use, easy to follow. We're walking back to the reality of the interview now. The document needs to be good enough that you can walk in off the street and do the thing. Or it needs to be good enough that if our purpose is we're going to train people to the document on a more complicated task, that the document fills that job. It does the job of knowledge transfer. That's what the E is for. And one last thing. On the easy to use and easy to follow thing, our objective in life should be to have the process evolve towards a light bulb. That's a thing. So it's not good enough to just document a shitty, complex process. We want to simplify the process so that it's easier for our people to do and easier to follow and do successfully. So it's not just about making a document. It's about improving the actual process. Okay? So that's where the E is coming. That's where the E is.
So that's where the 2-second lean part comes into it, because it's there's another great book I'm reading at the moment. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Peak by Anders Ericsson. And he talks about training should be part of your work. And if we're training during the working, like we look at athletes and all the rest, so anyone that wants to perform at a high level trains every day. They don't do it every now and again.
Absolutely.
Or once every 3 months or whatever. This should be part of the process. Should be learning and practicing, improving, learning and practicing, improving. Deliberate practice or 3D training, I've heard it called as well, which is exactly what you're speaking to here as well.
Yeah. 100%. Absolutely 100%. If you're not training and developing your people constantly, then your atrophy is what you're experiencing.
Yeah. You're in decline again if you're not sharpening the sword. After it's easy, it needs to be.
Then we're available at point of use. That's what the A is for. So again, we'll go back to our yellow folder. No good to man or beast. The question, the phrase that I want to give the listeners here is put the answer where the question is. That's the basic thing we're saying here, available at point of use. So if for example, how I change the filter on that machine, if we can put the answer on a QR code on the machine where the filter is. And then if somebody needs to do that task, oh God, there's a standard for that. Brilliant. I don't have to work it all out. In many environments, especially yours, where the construction world, your environment's changing constantly. So you've got people moving in, you're in a different place, you're in a different site. Even the site is constantly changing as the project develops. As far as possible, put the answer where the question is. So if these are equipment related questions, get the QR code for that piece of kit on it and make sure everybody's aware of it. Because you can't blame someone for not following a process they didn't even know existed. So the first step in terms of implementing any kind of standard process is awareness. So that's kind of built into the available at point of use thing as well. If people aren't aware of a process, you can't blame them for not following it.
Yeah, okay. A great example of that in the construction actually is like you said, things are constantly evolving, and we'll build a job we did cooling towers last year, right? We're 200 metres long. So you put structure in as you go. As you put the structure in as you go, you need to mark your columns up so they can go to someone. You need to go down to row H, like XY coordinates. That's what Tom's getting at here. Make it, because I'm going to walk down to the job and go, what fucking column am I supposed to be working on? So that's where the question needs to be. Well, I mean, the answer needs to be there where Benny's standing there going, well, is this H or is this Z or is it,
Yeah, 100%, that is it. And so the final letter leads off from that awareness and available at point of use, is tested and trained. And this is very applicable to your more important critical processes. So the tested part is that when we first document a process, that it's ran through and making sure that it does the job we need it to do. So if the expectation is somebody off the street can do this, we test it and we understand that the process can be followed, and yes, that can happen. Or if the purpose of of documenting the process is that we can train someone, then we train them using the process and understand that it does the job it's supposed to. So that's what the final T is. But again, one of the little acronyms, it's in my head and not in the book. When I look at implementing processes, there are 3 critical steps for important processes. ATV, put that in your head, because I think that's some kind of acronym for some kind of vehicle, right? All-terrain vehicle. Yeah. So
that's right. Yeah.
Awareness is the first thing. Trained is the next thing, and validated is the last part. Because what happens, this is a truism even in manufacturing. People don't know how to train someone. They've no clue what training actually means. So in the book, there's a reference to a now 70-plus-year-old standard coming from Training Within Industry, which was a wartime initiative in the US to basically rapidly upskill and increase the production volume for weapons during the Second World War. And they were training people, people who were not manufacturing people had to become manufacturing people very fast. So they developed this system that it actually is one of the origins of the Toyota production system in terms of the whole standard work thing. So what they were doing is they gave you the job cards. Let me pick them up. They're in my cupboard here. There's a set of job cards that come from the Training Within Industry covering different aspects of this, but I'm going to just focus on the how you train what somebody card. The key thing here is it's a 4-step process of how you train someone. So first of all, like, who are you? What's your level of knowledge? Like, are you an expert? So I want to pitch my training to your level. So prepare the worker, understand the worker, show them the process. So show them step by step, talk them through the process. What are the critical key points you need to be thinking about as you do the process? So you're just showing them how it's done. The third part is, right, you talk back to me and describe to me as I'm doing the process, what, did you get what I told you? Did the knowledge transfer? And again, if you've got a documented standard here, which you're supposed to have in this system, that makes that whole process a lot easier. And so now you get into the show me. You're now watching the person do the task. You're supporting them. You're like correcting them if necessary, and you're doing that cycle till you can taper off the training. So, and then finally, okay, right, you're good to go. We're signing you off. And again, one of the things we do in Gemba Docs is a skills competence matrix. It's a digital version of a thing called a skills matrix, which is very common in manufacturing. And it's a way of documenting and signing off people to a specific skill or task. So in this situation, you are using it for your important critical processes, and you follow that process. And then at the end of it, you sign, both the trainer and the trainee sign it off. And that's what I call validated. So now we're not leaving it up to chance. Did Dave read the standard? Does Dave know? No. Dave has been trained. Dave signed off that I know that process, and Dave is validated at different levels of competence. And if you, for your big processes, that's what you need to do. That's how you implement. So anyway, that's taken us right up to the end, from getting the things documented right through to proper full-on implementation. That's how you do it. If you want to keep the rope tight, you need to have a rope to start with.
Okay. Is that where that bit is? Is that where it talks about keep the rope tight? Is that correct?
It's not. I just came up with that. Like, that is what I literally just came up with that. To keep the rope tight and lean is like, okay, that's we need to keep the place ship shape is how I interpret that. But my new interpretation, Adam, that you helped me get to is the rope is the process, and if you don't have a rope, you can't keep it tight, can you?
Yeah, exactly. We know what bad looks like now. There's going to be a lot of people listening and watching and go, yeah, we're in that. If you are, don't beat yourself up. You're not on your Pat Malone. There's probably, I don't know, a couple of % that execute like this up in this top corner here. There's outliers that are growing and scaling. Probably somewhere between 90 and 95%, I'd say, sit down here in this bottom corner. Their question's going to be, Tom, this all sounds wonderful. Where do I start? What's the best place for them to start?
The first part's awareness. That's like, okay, right. And the second part is in the title of my main book, the book that I'm really proud that I wrote, is Improvement Starts With I, and there it is. And the clue is in the title. So if you're going to start with this, especially if you're a leader or a business owner or a senior manager, is that without that mindset of improvement starts with I, it's so easy to think, my world would be great if I had great people. My world would be great if, they would just follow processes and we had standard processes. I see it all the time in manufacturing. If we had an ERP system, everything would be great. If I had an operations manager who knew what he was doing, everything would be great. No, my friend, that attitude is going to get you absolutely effing nowhere. You did it. That's the bit that you need to understand. You did it. And the beautiful part about that is that when you did it, you can undo it. And I'm being diplomatic when I say that. I think you know where I'm coming from with that. That's if you effed it, you can un-eff it. So, but that is the most important thing. And you see, when you go, right, okay, I see it, I'm aware this is a place where I need lots of hand sanitizer because it's terrible. I can change it. And now that's where it starts. And now this is an answer that's not like, I don't believe is 2025 friendly, because everybody wants the quick effing fix. Life's not like that. Life is not like that. There's not a silver bullet. I can't sell you Gemba Docs and everything's going to be great. No. Gemba Docs is a brilliant tool to use within a transformation. But without the context and the rest of the supporting culture and all of that, it's just going to sit on its own and become wallpaper. It has to have supporting culture shift as well. So that always starts at the top. Improvement starts with I. My big advice to you is, if you want to go down the continuous improvement path, become a student of lean yourself. And take a few months over digesting the material and slowly start to evangelize about it with your team. Not like waking up on Monday morning. I know people this has happened to. I read 2-second lean over the weekend, come in Monday morning, we're going to do this, and 3 guys leave because this guy's gone insane. Right? I actually know that story of their main person left that Monday morning. Right? So you need to become a student of lean. You need to evangelize. You need to understand, because if you're going to lead a change, you can't have the blind leading the blind. So you need to really start to understand that. And I won't say a deep level, just a good level. So read books like 2-Second Lean by Paul Akers, Get Improvement Starts With I, which is totally free, available at improvementstartswithI.com in all kinds of formats. You have Ryan Tierney's Lean Made Simple book. When it comes to implementing that in any organization, it's made it so simple and easy to follow. The ingredients are there. That's my advice. Come up, once you're aware, decide to work on yourself, and then take that out, get your team aligned, go change the world.
I've heard another lad talk to this, I can't remember his name, right, and he said he actually has in his title, it's like expert, and he crosses that out, guru crosses that out, and then he puts student of the game in there. And we see the student as being the lower level person, but it's not. When I first really got serious about 2-second lean, I was driving from here to Brisbane 3 times a week, right? And it used to take me, I know, anywhere up to hour and a half. And I listened to everything on double speed. I played that book, I must have listened to it over 100 times. And there was different stuff that I picked up out of it every single time. And I'm not saying, like Tom's saying, that you don't need to do that as well. But I would recommend, that talks to this in this book that I was talking about before, the peak. If you spend 16 minutes a day focused on doing something, on becoming an absolute expert on it, on getting up into this top corner, absolutely nailing this part of the process of reading Tom's book 15 minutes every day, in 12 months you'll be in like top 5% of the world, 100 hours. But it's got to be deliberate. You've got to be pushing yourself, and you've got to be learning all the time. Is that how it works for you as well, mate?
Absolutely, mate. I went through the automotive university as well. For a long time, I was doing a similar commute to you. I was digesting everything. I probably did the 2-Second Lean book 20 times. And I was just diving into everything. Lots more educational tomes than I mentioned there. For me, these days, they're the basics. You dive into those. That's really, really going to help you. But no, I totally agree with you, Adam. And the compound interest that you're going to get from that is massive. But again, as I touched on there, everybody wants an easy answer. Everybody just wants to, and there's so many snake oil salesmen out there selling people the fucking seminar that's going to change their lives and everything else. Yes, you can get the mindset shift. And that can be really helpful, really useful. That's a thing. But the hard work of doing stuff like this, it's the best way I can say it, summed up by another lean friend of mine, Michael Althoff in Germany. Lean is hard work that makes life easy. And that's what it is. So we have to work at it every day. But the alternative, like I was asked recently, what would you say? I couldn't imagine running a business that didn't have a lean culture. Just tolerating crap every day without having a culture that stops and fixes it. I literally can't imagine doing that now. And that's the prize. You can work in a business that fixes problems on a daily, or you can work in a business that just like firefights all the time and chaos and sleepless nights and everything else. So there we go. It's been a fun chat today.
That's the irony of the quick fix bit, right? If you actually got in and did this and focused on it, like I'm saying, 15, 20 minutes a day or whatever, and you did that in 12 months, you would not be able to recognise the difference. Yeah, everyone wants the quick fix, which isn't a quick fix, which creates more work, and you'll go backward in 12 months. So you tell me which one's a quick fix. I know which one I'd rather be doing.
Like Adam, there's one, when I first started I've been around and doing lean for 30 plus years. But when I came on the 2-Second Lean train about 7 years ago, and I was trying to persuade an ownership team to develop, at that time it was an hour a day. I would never say anybody do that. But even if we say 20 minutes a day to morning meeting and making improvements, all you have to do, even if it's an hour in an 8-hour shift, is get 15% better Just think of that. That's how a good friend of mine described it. Well, how long is it going to take you to get 15% better? Now you've got that hour for free for life because you made that improvement and you're sustaining it through your system. Yeah. So if you scale that down, if we're only going to do 20 minutes, how long is it going to take us to get 5% better? So it's not the investment, it's not the loss that people think of taking time out every day to train your people, build culture, learn to see waste, and then give them some time to fix their problems in a dedicated way. It's not the loss people think it is. So yeah, just get your improvement starts with I, and then just JFDI after that.
All right. I think I've got through the whole lot, mate. Is there any last words of wisdom that you want to share before you go? Any one thing you want people to do? JFDI?
I think I'm just going to reiterate what I said there earlier, because I know that it does resonate with people when I've said it to other audiences, is that whenever you're able to shift your mindset with your people as a thing to be controlled and motivated, and you're able to shift your mindset to your people being a resource that you develop and support, that'll change everything. Once you change that, like, I need to motivate, I need to control, I need to have reports, to write, I need to support and develop, and I need to dive in and support them, set them up for success, and you change that mindset. Everything will change when you do that.
Perfect. Tom, thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Adam. It's been great.
We'll be back for another session, I'm sure.
All right, good. I enjoy.
Let's get it.